In this video, I'm trying to use Microsoft Copilot to create a Power Automate flow. This is how the flowchart looks like once the project is completed. And this was actually generated by the Microsoft Copilot. Microsoft Copilot is an AI which helps you generate a flow based on the prompt that you give to the program. It's an easy way to solve your simple problems if you know the steps involved in the process. I'm not a tech guy, so I'm trying to use the Copilot to solve my simple problems in my day-to-day work environment. So today, actually, I'm trying to generate a report from the marks in an Excel and send emails to those students who actually were successful and those that actually were not. That's the whole idea for the project, and I'm just testing this out. This is just to document what I have done for a later review. As you can see, this is a manual trigger. That is the first step in the flowchart. It is followed by list rows present in a table. So we have an Excel in which we have the data that we are going to use, and we are going to identify the location of this Excel either in SharePoint or in OneDrive, and we will identify the folder where it is located, the name of the file, and the table from which we are obtaining the data. That's the second box that we see here. Once we have done that, then we go into for each row. We identify each row and then we look through the data, and I am creating a condition here, and the condition is I want to find out those students having a mark of less than 50%, and that's the condition I'm going to apply here. If that is true, I will send an email, and the contents of the email will be in agreement with the marks that they have. Now suppose they have a mark greater than 50, which means they are passing the course or they have earned a credit, then the condition is false and I will send a different mail. That's the whole idea for this project, and that's what this flowchart represents. Now let's see how we can actually perform the whole process and obtain this flow for actual use in a real environment. In order to create this flow, first we will log into the Microsoft account, and then we will go into the SharePoint or OneDrive for Business. Here I'm going into SharePoint, and I'm going to locate a folder where I have stored some of my files, and I will be creating a new Excel file in one of the folders. That's what I'm going to do. Next, I will create an Excel file in the DOC folder. This Excel file is going to be called Final Marks. Now I'm going to post some data into it. I've created some data here. I'm just going to copy and paste it so you can have an idea what I'll be using in order to generate this flow. I pasted some data. I'm going to change the size of the fields so that you can see it clearly. Last name, these are all fictitious names, not real people. Then I have a student ID to identify them with. So then I have the student email, but in this case I'm going to use an email address where all the mails are coming to one of my mails, just to check the functioning of the Power Automate flow. You should actually put in the real email addresses of the students to whom you want to send the mail. Then you have the final mark in this particular column. If you want to send an email to the parent, you can include the email address of the parent, father or mother, as the case may be, and those values should go in here. At this time, I do not have any values. I just wanted to show how I can send a flow, segregate the students based on the values of the final mark. That's the whole idea. Okay. In order to do that, the most important thing is we need to actually create a table to use this Excel in a Power Automate flow. Go insert tables. Okay, insert. There is table over here. and my table has headers. You make sure you have selected that. The next thing you want to do is you also want to know what is the name of this table. So select table design, make sure you have selected any one of the columns within it, and you will see there's a table. One is the name of this table. I'm going to change it to final marks to identify it as this particular table. So the data can be placed anywhere, but the table should be organized. Once we have the table, it doesn't matter where it is placed, it will work. So this is the first part that we need. We are done with that. Next, we will go into Power Automate and create a flow. Today, I'm going to use Copilot to create this flow. I've already created a similar flow, so I know exactly how it works, but I just wanted to use Copilot to see if it would generate the same flow. So let's go to Power Automate. So here you will see, start building your own flow with a Copilot. So this is where you can actually type in your prompts. So if you type in anything and click generate, it will make some suggestions for you. So since I've already done this earlier, I kind of have an idea of what the steps should be, and this is what I have at this point of time. So I have already generated a prompt so that it can build the flow. Since I've already tried it out, and I just wanted to see, show and document how I can actually generate a prompt for the flow that I need. The first thing I did, this is what I typed in: obtain data from each row in an Excel saved in SharePoint or OneDrive for Business. For each row in the table, apply a condition and send Gmail for both conditions. So this is what I want to do. So I got my student list, I got their marks on the Excel sheet, I got their email address, I got their parents' email address, and now I want to send one email to the students who are getting marks less than 50%, and I want to send a second email to all those who are getting a mark greater than 50% or earning a credit. So that's what I really want to do. So I'm going to generate a flow using Copilot. So this is the flow that is generated by, which is suggested by the Copilot. We're going to have a flow created with a button. It's going to be manual action. Then it's going to list rows present in the table. After that, it will go through each row and identify the values and apply the condition that is mentioned here. And then once we have the condition, if it satisfies the condition as true, it'll send an email. And if it's not satisfying, it'll send a different email. So that's what we want, and that's exactly what I want. So I'm going to click next here. Okay. And I want to create this flow. Hit create. So it's giving me a flow chart to tell me exactly what has been suggested. Okay, so I have a manual flow that can be triggered. I have to list the rows present in the table, and then for each row I have to apply a condition. If the condition is true, it will send an email. If it is false, it will send a different email. And that's what I want to do. So now let's go and obtain the data. So I'm going to click on list rows present in table, and it gives me an option on the left side to go and identify the location of the document. So I have to go and select a location. There are so many SharePoint sites here, and mine, the one that I want to use, is called Power Automate, which I have already created earlier. I selected that, and again I need to select the document folder. So I have a few folders. One of them where I have subfolders and documents is called documents, so I select that. So in the document folder, I need to select the file. When I click on this open folder, it gives me the options. So there is a subfolder in it which is called docs. You would have seen it earlier. You can see here. See, final mark is the file that we created right now. Select that. And if you drop down, we should see the table names. So we have a couple of table names there because of the other file. So this is the table name that is present in the final marks Excel sheet. So I'm going to select that. So that means this particular column, list rows present in the table, the conditions have been fulfilled. We identified the location on the SharePoint. We looked at the folder where it is saved, looked for the file name in the subdirectory, and we identified the table in the Excel sheet. So this is the table that we are looking for. Okay, so we have identified that part. Now it's going to iterate through each of these rows, starting from 7 going all the way to 16. So what we're going to do is, once it goes through it, we have to set some conditions. So the conditions can be set on the left side. By clicking on the condition on the left side, you see the pane opens up. We have to choose a value. What we need to do is, if you go back to the Excel, you will see I'm going to look at the marks here. So this is the column I'm looking at. Anybody having a mark of less than 50, we have 1, 2 students having mark less than 50, or three of them. We need them to be filtered, and if that condition is satisfied, we want to send an email. That condition has to be true. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is choose value. Now we can do two things. One is we can actually dynamically select the value. So I'm going to right now dynamically select the value, and if you look at it, we're going to look at final mark. So we're going to select that. So if the mark is less than, we need to know is less than 50. That's the number that we're looking at, because the pass mark is 50. Then the condition is true, and then those students will be considered as having a separate email. The rest of the students where this condition is not true will be false, and you would send a different email to them. So we have selected that, and we have this going on here. So I'm going to use the information using the dynamic data. As such, I can add a second set of values. In this case, all I need is this. And now I'm going to configure the email. That's the next thing I have to do. So at this point of time, this is done. We have done for each. We have set the condition for true and false. And if the value is true, we want to send an email. So when you click on this, on the left pane, you will see the email client form open up. So we have to pick email addresses. So I'm going to use dynamic email address list. So I'm going to click on that, and you'll find that student ID, student email. In this case, I've created a set of values. I'm going to select student email, and then I'm going back to the email list. So the student email goes in here. These values actually will be different, but I have just used a single value so that I want it to come to, it's a test run, so come to a particular mail where I can see the actual output. So that's what I've done here. So you go back, I have identified the email, and again I can select all the parameters that I want. There are a few important things. If you want to add a CC, for instance, if you want to add the parental email, so again you can go here and select father's email. You can put a semicolon and separate it and add mother's email again. You can do that, but in this case I am not doing it because I don't have any values there. I'm not doing it. Okay, so I'm going to delete it. I can send BCC if I need to. If I do not want the students to know that I've sent it to their parents, or for whatever reason I want to use it as BCC, I can enter it here. Importance I can state. Now the subject is, you can also add the name of the student here or the student number if you need. So let's say I can put the student ID, which is the student number. I can also include that there from the dynamic data. And now I can actually type in the email body. So hi, and I can use the dynamic list and say first name of the student, the comma, this is your final mark in science. So I have to enter the final mark. I go to again the final mark and I put the percent simple. I can add the date if I want. So go down and you will see that I can add the full address, dates, there should be date, city, position, postal code, anything you can add. I'm just going to include date here for the information. So kind of I have the information needed for the students who are getting marks of less than 50. Okay, so that's done. And let's go. Okay, so that's what you have here for the email for, let's say it says invalid parameters, so we don't need, we don't need it. That's not needed, probably it corrects it. That was it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to send a second email. Configure the second email just like you did the first one, with the only exception that the text will be different in this email to suit the data that you are actually sending out. Next, we will save the flow, test the flow, and run the flow. That's what we will do, just to check whether everything is right. For some reason, some of the icons are not visible on this page, like the next function or the next page, etc. So you will be able to see it while you're doing it. So we're going to test it manually. Click test. We are using Excel and Gmail to actually complete this. So we're going to continue right now. And now we're going to run this flow. Okay. Your flow run successfully started. We want to monitor it. So we're going to do done. Okay, it failed. I believe I know what really happened here. So here the condition is invalid. That's what it says. So what we're going to do is we're going to check out the condition. So we need to make some modifications. I know what it is because the condition selects a number, but we are comparing a string value with an integer. That's what's causing the problem. That's what I believe is happening here at this point of time. So I'm going to select the condition, and this particular condition, the final mark is a number. In Power Automate, this value will be considered as a string here, and this value will be an integer. So what we have to do is we have to change this into an integer. So what we are going to do is we're going to click select here and go to insert expression. Okay, that's what we're going to do. We're going to convert the information in final mark to an integer. And in order to do that, let's type in int. So we have integer. We want to change the value into an integer. So this is what you get. So integer, and in brackets, we have whatever is going into this brackets will be read as an integer, even if it's a string. So we're going to final mark. So final mark is actually an item that is coming from each row, and we are going to use the number coming from final mark. So we have to type in that particular information over here. So it is items. So we will go for each. For each, close the bracket, then a question mark, square brackets, quotes, and final mark. I believe that's the one that we need. Final mark, and that's it. So that should do the trick. So we're going to add that, and we're going to delete the dynamically chosen value. So we have made a correction here in the condition. This used to be a string value, and just comparing to an integer, that doesn't work. You cannot compare apples to oranges. You can only compare apples to apples or oranges to oranges. So that's what we have done. We have changed this string value into an integer, and theoretically it should work. So let's save this now, and let's see if we can so we're going to test it now. Again, manually test. So we're going to run the flow. Done. Let's see what happens now. And the flow has completely run. There is a check mark here, check mark here, check mark here, check mark here. In theory, we have done it, and your flow ran successfully. So that means our flow is working. The only error was a string to integer conversion was needed, and that we had to do it under condition. And when that was done, the whole thing worked. That's about it. So let's head back to Outlook and see if the mail has come. Now, before that, let's also look at the names. We had Sarah Thomas, John Vincent, Sam Smith. These are the people who are in this list. So let's look at the email to see if we have any emails that had come. Yeah, it sounds like that. So this is the email client. So let's look at it. So if you go to the top, we have, so dear Michael, this is your final mark in science, 88%. He's got a mark above 50. Congratulations, you have been successful in the program. With regards, and the date. That's what we saw. Let's look at the second mail. It's a 40%, so the mail has to be different. Hi Kumar, this is your final mark in science, 40%. You have not been successful at this time. Please meet with your guidance counselor or to discuss future plans. And that's a different mail. That's exactly what we wanted. The third one again, 82%, so that's a different mail. 79 is a pass. Again, that's a fail. So you see the mail is different. So the whole point is we were able to actually send emails to both the students who have passed the program or earned a credit and those who have not been successful. And just by using the Excel data that we had, we could send it in one click to all the students. So that's how you can create Power Automate using Copilot. It's pretty simple and straightforward. Well, if you try a few times, make some mistakes, then everything is easy. Even though people say everything is easy, it takes a while if you are new to it and learning something new. This is not a tech video for tech people because I'm just learning stuff to use in my day-to-day life. So it's only a documentation of work that is being done so that I can go back and see what I did in order to do certain things. That's the whole idea. It's not as a guideline for developing programs. So that's the disclaimer I have for you. So if it was useful for you, just like, comment, and if you have any questions, post it. I may not be able to answer most of them, but I'm sure somebody will. Thank you and have a great day.